On the morning of May 8, 1902, the people of Saint-Pierre on the island of Martinique woke to a sky the color of pewter. It wasn't the gentle gray of a rainy day, but a heavy, unnatural gloom, as though the sun had withdrawn behind a wall of ash. The air smelled faintly of sulfur, sharp and metallic, and fine dust settled on windowsills and rooftops. Chickens clucked uneasily, dogs barked at nothing, and in the harbor, sailors looked up at the brooding shape of Mount Pelée with a wariness they couldn't quite name. It was Ascension Day, a religious holiday. The streets filled with people dressed in their Sunday best, women in white dresses with bright scarves, men in pressed suits, children skipping beside them. Shopkeepers arranged bread, fruit, and bottles of rum in their stalls. Priests prepared for Mass. Yet beneath the normal rhythm of life was a current of tension, a quiet awareness that for weeks, the volcano looming over their city had been restless. Mount Pelée had always been there, a green giant watching over Saint-Pierre. The city, called the Paris of the Caribbean, was the island's pride. Its theaters drew crowds for plays and opera. Cafes spilled music and laughter into cobblestone streets. Its harbor was alive with ships from Europe and the Americas. People spoke French in lilting Creole, enjoyed the sweet air from the sea, and trusted in the stability of their beautiful home. The volcano, though, was part of that home, and they believed it harmless. But the weeks leading up to May 8th had been different. The mountain had sent up columns of steam. Small earthquakes rattled windows. Ash fell like gray snow, coating crops and streets. Rivers near the volcano boiled. Animals fled from the slopes. There were even reports of snakes, hundreds of them, slithering down into the lowlands, driven from their burrows by the heat. Yet most people stayed. Why? Partly because the governor assured them there was no danger. Elections were coming, and evacuating the city would have been a political disaster. Partly because the scientists on the island believed the activity was mild, perhaps even beneficial, a harmless venting of pressure, and partly because Saint-Pierre's people had lived in the volcano's shadow for centuries. Pelee had grumbled before; it had never destroyed the city. But that morning, Pelee was done grumbling. Shortly before 8 o'clock, the mountain split open with a sound like the tearing of the sky. A column of black smoke shot upward, twisting and churning, laced with lightning. The sea in the harbor went still for a heartbeat, as though stunned before the shockwave reached it. From the crater, a monstrous cloud of superheated gas and ash, a pyroclastic surge, hurtled down the slope. It moved faster than any human could run, over 100 miles per hour, hugging the ground like a living thing. Witnesses on ships offshore would later say it looked like a boiling black wall, filled with fire and flying debris. When it reached Saint-Pierre, the city vanished. The temperature at the front of the cloud was over 1,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to ignite wood instantly, to melt glass, to sear flesh in seconds. Roofs exploded into flames. Stone walls crumbled. In the streets, people were struck down mid-step, their clothes igniting, their lungs burned by the scalding air before they could even cry out. The harbor boiled. Ships anchored there burst into flame or capsized under the shockwave. The destruction took less than 2 minutes. In those minutes, 30,000 people died. Only 2 people in the entire city survived. One was a cobbler named Léon Compère Léandre, who lived on the edge of Saint-Pierre and was shielded by a wall. The other was a man named Ludger Silbergeris, locked in a thick-walled, windowless jail cell as punishment for a drunken brawl. When rescuers found him days later, he was badly burned but alive. Silbergeris would go on to join the Barnum and Bailey circus, billed as the man who lived through doomsday. For the rest of the world, the disaster was almost beyond belief. Telegrams flashed the news across Europe and the Americas, a city obliterated in moments. Journalists descended on Martinique. Scientists arrived to study the volcano, to understand this strange, deadly phenomenon. The term nuée ardente, glowing cloud, entered the scientific vocabulary, describing the fast-moving, ground-hugging surges of gas and ash that Pelee had unleashed. Today, we call them pyroclastic flows, one of the most lethal forces on Earth. But in 1902, few understood them. people assumed volcanic danger came from lava flows, slow, visible, escapable. What they didn't know was that some volcanoes kill with invisible speed, the air itself turning into a weapon. Theories and questions began swirling. Why had Pelee erupted with such fury? Some geologists believe that water had seeped into the volcano's magma chamber, flashing into steam and triggering a catastrophic explosion. Others think the collapse of a lava dome released the pressurized gases in an instant. Local folklore suggested the volcano was avenging an insult, some divine retribution for human arrogance. There was also anger. The governor's decision not to evacuate, despite weeks of warnings, became a subject of bitter debate. Survivors accused officials of sacrificing the people for politics. Had the city been emptied days earlier, thousands might have lived. Even stranger stories emerged. There were accounts of bizarre atmospheric effects in the days after. Blood-red sunsets, ash falling hundreds of miles away, the air carrying the faint scent of burnt sugar. Sailors spoke of finding roasted birds floating on the waves near the island. Others claimed they saw lightning dancing in the black cloud as it struck, a terrifying beauty in the midst of annihilation. The eruption did not end on May 8th. Pelee would erupt again in the months that followed, sending more pyroclastic flows down its flanks, destroying what little remained of Saint-Pierre. By the end of 1903, the once thriving city was nothing but a charred ruin, its streets buried in ash and debris. It would never reclaim its title as the Paris of the Caribbean. Today, the ruins remain as a silent witness, stone walls standing against a backdrop of green slopes and a volcano that sleeps, for now. Mount Pelée taught the world a deadly lesson about underestimating nature. It forced volcanologists to rethink how they studied and classified eruptions, and it remains a chilling reminder that some disasters come with no time to flee. When you stand in Saint-Pierre today, the sea still sparkles under the sun, fishing boats bob gently in the harbor, and the volcano rises green and seemingly serene behind the city. It's hard to reconcile this peaceful scene with the memory of that morning in 1902, but the mountain remembers, the land remembers. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of history's most sudden and complete tragedies. I wonder, if you had been in Saint-Pierre that week, would you have trusted the officials who told you to stay, or would you have fled at the first sign of trouble? And more importantly, in the face of nature's fury, do we ever truly have enough warning? If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps keep these stories alive.